The Jazz Spotlight, Episode 18. Hey everybody, what's up? It's me, Jani Lunga from thejazzspotlight.com. Welcome to this 18th episode of the podcast. Time flies so fast, we're already approaching the 20th episode. Today marks the third episode of this special edition of the podcast. So like I told you in the last two episodes, for this week and this week only, the Jazz Spotlight podcast is gonna be daily. It's a special edition with new guests every day. And actually there is a little bit of a surprise because today we're gonna have two episodes, so two great guests here. Now we have episode 18 and in a moment there's gonna be out also episode 19, so more guests to look forward to. I just want to do a short recap in case you missed the last two episodes of the podcast. On episode 16 there was great guitarist Kevin Eubanks, and on last episode, episode 17, there was Mark Carey. And I would like to thank both of you, Mr. Eubanks and Mr. Carey, if you're listening to this episode. I really appreciate the podcast has been really appreciated, downloaded quite a lot. So I'm really happy that I got a chance to interview both of you. Today I'm really excited because I have the first Canadian guest on the podcast. How about that? It's a really nice thing. And I have a special relationship with Canada because a few years ago, I actually got the chance to live for some time in Canada, in Toronto, city that I love to. And I visited a couple of times, so I always have nice memory about Toronto. And whenever I hear the name Canada, always has a special place in my heart. So today, the guest actually is from Ontario, not from exactly from Toronto, but not that far away, from Ottawa, from the Canadian capital. The guest is Pierre Chrétien of the popular band Souljazz Orchestra, one of my favorite bands, and I'm really happy because at the Jazz Festival I got the chance to see them live for the first time. Really loved the gig. It was a very nice gig. It was really nice weather, really nice atmosphere. And Pierre is here today to talk about the band, to talk about their latest album, Inner Fire, and also to give us a preview about their upcoming albums and some advice for musicians who would like to follow the footsteps of the Souljazz Orchestra, or for those who would like to tour. So plenty of great things coming up. Like always, I just want to remind you that you can find the links and the resources we mentioned on this episode at thejazzspotlight.com/episode 18. This is a Jazz Talk with Pierre Chrétien. Enjoy. Hey Jazz fans, what's up? Jani Lunga here of the Jazz Spotlight podcast from the Jazz Festival in Pori, Finland. I continue this special edition of the podcast from the festival with another guest here, another great guest. I'm really excited because they're actually gonna play in a couple of hours, so I've never seen them live, so I'm really excited about that. He's Pierre Chrétien of the Souljazz Orchestra from Ottawa, a great live band, probably one of the most exciting bands one can ever see live. And we're gonna have a great chat here. We're gonna talk about obviously their latest album, Inner Fire, about a bit about the story of the band, and Pierre is also gonna tell us about traveling, about touring, because they've been on the road quite a lot now. They are here in Finland, and I think they've been recently performing also in France. So we're gonna hear more from Pierre. But first, let's hear from him. Pierre, welcome on the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
My pleasure, Pierre. So is it your first time here in Pori, in Finland?
Yeah, definitely. We've been to Helsinki before, but really it's our first time so far out in Finland, and it's beautiful out here. We just love it. It actually looks a lot like home back in Canada, so we feel right at home here.
Are you a bit homesick, or?
Well, we've been on the road for a month now, so yeah, it is kind of nice to be here for that reason. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, and like Pierre said, it's a very nice day. Super weather, really. I think couldn't be any better for playing outdoors.
Yeah, it's perfect weather actually. Yeah.
And I'm really excited because I've been a big fan of yours for quite some time, but I've actually never had the chance to hear the band live. So I'm really excited. And can you tell us a little bit about Inner Fire, your latest album, the 6th album in 9 years? What can you tell us about that album?
Well, this one was it's a special one because we kind of wanted to touch on different things that we've done over the past years, you know. So it's a little bit of a synthesis of different things we've done. So it's got a little bit of the Afro sounds of our earlier albums, with some of the spiritual jazz of albums like Rising Sun, with some of the tropical groove stuff of our last album before that, Solidarity. So it's all that kind of all put together, and it came out good, I think.
And now here you are after 6 records in 9 years, 2 Juno Awards nomination. I imagine you have had a great time, but how did you guys get started with the band?
We started back in 2002 in Ottawa, and we were just buddies. We used to hang out in the same spots, you know, the Mercury Lounge, the Café Nostalgica, the Babylon nightclub in Ottawa. And and just through talking, we just found out we had a lot of the same taste in music, and we decided to just start jamming just for fun. So I remember they all came over to my house, and we just started playing for fun, and it took off from there. So at that point we never had any big ambitions, but you know, it's funny how things turn out sometimes, you know.
And I think it's great to see that, you know, you still have a lot of fun when you're on a stage, that I think it's really important, even now that, you know, you're an established band and you play professionally, or even at bigger venues and bigger festivals. And what has been one of perhaps the challenges of, you know, being with the Souljazz Orchestra and now traveling so much?
Well, the tricky thing is being on the road all the time. You know, some of us have wives or kids at home, and you know, it's tricky to balance all that out, you know. And I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. And then when you're on the road a lot, you know, it's a lot of work, and you know, it's a lot of fun too. But it takes some getting used to. But you know, we've been doing it for 12 years, and it's the same band. In 12 years, that's pretty good, I think. You know, a lot of bands tend to switch over, or, you know. So I think we stuck it out pretty good.
And on episode 7 with Ezra Brown, we talked about touring the world. He shared his stories. He also travel all the time, and he was talking about you know, also apps that he uses when he's on the road. Is there one app or one tool that you use that you kind of couldn't live without, especially when you're traveling and touring?
It's funny. You're talking to me. I'm a real old-fashioned guy. I don't even have a cell phone in Canada. I have a phone you plug in the wall. And so I like keeping things pretty simple. I have a cell phone for Europe, but that's about it.
Okay, then let's say about tools. Except for your instrument, what is the thing you absolutely cannot be without when you're touring?
What I do, I organize all the tours, and I make something, we called it the Fun Pack. And it's a big binder with everything we need, all the plane tickets, all the phone numbers, contacts, you know, train tickets, schedules, everything we need is in this Fun Pack. And everyone in the band gets one of these Fun Packs, and it's your whole life is in there. So I'm kind of old-fashioned, it's just papers and pens, but you know, it works.
So the Fun Pack, definitely something you wouldn't like to leave at home.
No, exactly, that's what we need, you know.
And, you know, some of the listeners of the podcast are musicians themselves, and perhaps, you know, they're dreaming of touring their country, or even bigger, perhaps the continent or the world. What kind of advice would you have for them?
I think when you really start traveling a lot and taking a lot of planes and all that, it's important to be practical. I notice a lot of these bands, you know, they're 20 people and they all play 20 different instruments, and they have, you know, they change guitars every songs, or, you know what I mean? They have 10 amps. That kind of stuff doesn't really work so well on tour. So I find the thing we had to do is really simplify things. Just bring what you need and make the most out of your instrument instead of relying on too many gimmicks or too many, you know. You don't need 10 guitars on the road. One, learn how to play one and play well, you know. Or, you know, back home I used to play a whole bunch of different keyboards, you know, surrounded by them. Then I had to, you know, okay, Rhodes clavinet, that's good enough. Let's stick with that, you know. So I found that was the best, the biggest thing we learned on tour, you know.
To try to be, not really efficient, but
that's
you know.
That's it, yeah. Well, efficient in a way, yeah, definitely.
And since you're traveling, you also are you see audiences, different cultures, different people, and perhaps you also get different reactions from the people. Is there an audience in particular that has really impressed you, that, you were really like, wow, we didn't expect this kind of atmosphere?
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, we travel all over the place, and we play really different kinds of places too. We'll do like jazz festivals where it's real like hardcore jazz fans, and they're looking at us and analyzing things. And then other times we might like open up for some like crazy hip hop band, playing a nightclub at 3 a.m. and everyone's jumping around. So we get to see very different types of audiences, from teenagers to old people to everything, and to little kids, Yeah, actually, on this tour, we just played Copenhagen, and I was really impressed there. Because we played in the north, and sometimes, people can be a little more subdued, but these people were just off the walls, super enthusiastic, dancing, break dancing, everything. It was awesome.
That's cool to hear. And also what I wonder is, like you mentioned now, different kind of audiences, like from also, the atmosphere, so people kind of looking more, kind of in a serious way, right. People just having fun. Does that somehow have an impact on you as a performer?
I guess so, yeah. I guess we feed a lot off the audience, whether they're, serious about it or they're dancing and having fun, as long as there's some sort of audience involvement, that's all we care about. And we really feed off that. And when we feel that the crowd is really into it, well, it's like action, reaction. It fuels the fire, so it's important.
And what also, like, sticking to this audience and atmosphere, what advice would you have for musicians who are maybe kind of, in a situation where they might feel a bit uncomfortable because of the atmosphere? Maybe they are not used to that kind of atmosphere, or, different kind of, for example, when it comes to clapping, in some countries people are just more like kind of serious in a way.
Right. I find the important thing, one thing they never teach you in music school, is to how to interact with the audience. And it's important to talk to them, and just talk to them like regular people, and see how have a good time, and tell little stories, and it just people really appreciate that. Well, if you're just up there and it's just about the music, well, people might feel a little alienated by that. So I think that's an important thing to do.
And of the festivals and venues that you have been performing this year and now, like also in North America and here in Europe, is there one that has impressed you in particular? You were mentioning Copenhagen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Copenhagen was great. One of the best ones on the tour. We also did the Mostly Jazz Festival in Birmingham. That was really cool too. A lot of great acts. Ginger Baker was there, and Earth, Wind and Fire, and all these big names like that. We've seen so much. You forget after a while. This one is impressing me, though. Pori is really, really, really impressive. I didn't realize the lineup, my God, with Bob Dylan and, P-Funk and Mulatu Astatke tomorrow. And, oh, my God, it's amazing.
And what are your plans for the second half of the year? Now we are almost in mid-July, end of July. What are the plans for the upcoming months?
So we go back to Canada soon. And we'll be touring across Canada from British Columbia to Quebec. And then after that, we'll be staying closer to home. We're recording a new album right now, so we'll be working on that in the months to come. And that's about it, yeah.
And now you mention a new album, I have to ask, can you give us a little preview, something about, for example, is it going to be released? Do you already have a season in mind? Is it winter? Is it autumn, spring?
Well, it'll be released in 2015 sometime. Spring or autumn of 2015. And we're pretty psyched about this one. It'll be a little bit different than what we've been doing so far, but very, very cool.
That sounds really like something to look forward to. And would you have something to tell, to all the young musicians who would like to follow your footsteps and the steps of the Souljazz Orchestra?
Well, all I gotta say, it's not an easy life being a professional musician. So make sure that's what you really, really want to do in life. But if it's your passion, you should really, follow through with everything you got. Because if you're passionate about music, that's what keeps you going when times are hard. Maybe the money's not coming in or whatever, because it's not an easy life. But if you're passionate about it, you just got to do it.
To go for it, like if it's what you want to do.
Totally.
Pierre, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and I'm just looking forward to your gig.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. All right, everybody, we are back. Pierre, if you're listening, thank you so much. I really enjoyed the interview. You're such a cool guy. And also thank you for your great live performance. As I said, it was the first time that I saw the Souljazz Orchestra live. I really liked the gig. So thank you. And I wish you a great summer. So for those of you who are listening, if you are a musician or have a band and thinking about touring, you heard some of the advice Pierre had to give. And actually would like to point you to another couple of episodes where you can learn more or hear more from the guests about touring. You can get advice about touring. And the episodes I recommend are episode 7, Touring the World with Ezra Brown, where saxophonist Ezra Brown talked about touring the world. So he talked about, his tours in Asia, in Europe, in Africa, and he shared some funny stories, and he also talked about the number one tool he uses when he's traveling, the one that is really helping him being in touch with his fans and communicating upcoming gigs, share photos, all these kind of things. So the first episode I recommend, you find it at thejazzspotlight.com/episode 7. And the second episode I recommend, it's actually episode 13 with Jerry Goldstein. If you go to thejazzspotlight.com/episode 13, you find more information. It's not really about being on the road, but it's more about how to book gigs and how to plan tours. So, it's the kind of the other side of the coin. Actually, this comes before, if you think about it. So if I were you, if you haven't yet, listen to episode 13 first after listening to this episode, where you learn more about how to plan tours and how to organize your website so that it's also targeting bookers and festival organizers and, those people who could potentially land you your next gig or show at a festival. And after that, listen to episode 7, Touring the World with Ezra Brown, where you can hear more about, stories on the road. And, I'm sure you're going to have a great time with both episodes. So this is the episode 18, and in a couple of hours, there's going to be out episode 19, the fourth of this special edition of the Jazz Spotlight podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you're enjoying this special edition of the podcast. And, if you like what you hear, feel free to share the episodes wherever you like. If you have a blog, feel free to share links of the podcast with your followers. If you're on social media, feel free to share it. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure that also the people I've interviewed would really appreciate if you help share the passion. So if you liked these episodes, feel free to share wherever you like. I'm Yanni Lunga, and I will be back with you actually just in a couple of hours. Take care.